just wanted to show you a little mistake that I'd made. It's not the first time I've done it. Hopefully you can learn from this one. But I was going ahead and I was mixing up our resin to fill in, the gaps in the plywood, any little dimples and stuff we had in the plywood. I went ahead and I mixed it up. I put my hardener in there. I didn't spend enough time mixing the hardener prior to adding my Cabasol and my air bubbles. What happened is I actually had, I created a mix that some of it was hard, some of it wasn't hard. So you can see this is now a couple days later. This stuff, it's nothing. It just never got hard. Now some of it did, as you go along. Some of it did, but then you'll come up to a pocket where here we got soft again. So pretty much what I did is I just created more work for myself. Like I said, I wish this was the first time I did it. It's not. I should have learned. I was in a rush. I only had a little bit I had to mix up to do this, which is good because there's not a whole lot that is ruined here. So that's what I'll be doing. I'll be scraping, and then once I get scraped, I'll have to hit it. I'll probably burn through a couple of discs, in the sander, just to get all the soft stuff out, because it's never going to harden. And then we'll go ahead and I'll have to replace it again, and it's going to push us back a little bit further, but we're pretty much ready to start laying some glass on this deck, if I could just get these seams all sealed. Yeah, we ended up wasting a lot of sanding discs, just trying to get the sticky stuff out. And what happens is the sanding disc, we were using, I think we had some 80 grit sanding discs on this. And what would happen is they would just totally get clogged up. You're removing the sticky stuff, but you're wasting discs. I'd have to... I'd have to imagine, just on this part here, this prep, I probably went through 10 discs. So we did go through a lot, but it was important to get the thing done right because this is our base here. Everything we do on top of this is only going to be as good as what's underneath it. Prep is done right, or at least as good as you can do. I'm not saying that this prep was done right. I think it was done right, but now right now there's no resin on the top of this deck, and the reason for that is once you put that resin down, it's going to be a laminating coat that you're going to put on there prior to the fiberglass, and this is very sticky. It's not cured. It's cured, but it's not finished, so it's still sticky. Now I'm working outside, so it seems like as soon as you put that resin down, the bugs start flying into it. Pollen gets into it. Little pieces of dirt and leaves get blown into it. So it's kind of it's a nightmare, truthfully, working outside. But it's what I had. That's it. The cover we had was this tent, so we had to deal with it. So once we get the prep done, we were ready to actually start laying some glass. Now, unfortunately, like I've said before in other videos, I had a lot of missing footage, and a lot of the missing footage was of me putting down all of the fiberglass on this deck. I blame it on the GoPro. It was all on one disc, which was my fault. But yeah, somehow that entire disc got corrupted, and we lost all of the footage after this. Truthfully, as you watch me do this, yeah, I wouldn't do it like this again. And a matter of fact, this is the last time I did it like this. My thought was that I was going to be able to roll out one sheet across the entire width of the boat, get enough resin into that sheet, and be done with it. I watched this on YouTube. I've seen a lot of guys do it. Works perfect, you know? Yeah, I'm not the guy that does it perfect. There was a lot of factors in this. One of the factors is temperature. You know, I'm working in South Florida, so I got a lot of humidity, and I got high temperature. This was in the summertime, and it was probably 93 degrees out, which was a battle in itself, because this stuff wants to fire off right away. Many times as I was doing this, I would go ahead and mix up 16 ounces, and I'd get 8 ounces out of it before it gelled. So there was a lot of different things that I tried to do. To buy me more time. One of the things you'll notice here is you'll see me lifting a bucket out of a bucket. Well, what I did is I used one pail to do my mixing in, and then I had a larger pail with ice water. So I was trying to keep the resin as cold as possible until I went ahead and put it on. It did buy me some more time, not enough time. This, what you're looking at here, this back sheet had been coated once before. And this is probably, just to give you a little bit of a timeline, that sheet at this point has probably been down for 3 months. So it's not, you know, I didn't do it 3 weeks ago. This is like 3 months later. So a lot of it had gone worn off just with the weather. A lot of it was I had to go over this and sand it lightly to get rid of the bugs and everything that had stuck into it. So I had gone over that. Of course,
I'll tell you what, that was probably 2 discs just to get rid of all the dirt and stuff. And then I didn't recoat it again until I'm laying the fiberglass mat. So what happened was some of the areas that were thinner, I had resin soaking into the plywood rather than soaking into the mat. And what actually happened is it would soak through the mat into the wood. That was a problem. And then the other problem was just that this stuff fires off so quick. I didn't have enough time to get that whole sheet down really the way I wanted to get it down. I did get it down, but not the way I wanted to. I wasn't able to get 100% of the air bubbles out before it started to cure. And then I ran into a problem at the one end when I actually spilled some water out of that bucket, and I ruined a piece of the matting because the water absorbed into the matting. But after this, everything else was done in much smaller pieces, and worked a lot better. One thing that I did do that I wouldn't do if I was doing this again is I overlapped my joints. And what that created is, if you remember back in the video on the seats where I showed you that hard edge, well, that created a hard edge on each side of that overlap. So we had to go back and that caused a little bit of a problem with the fairing. You know, it was a little extra fairing, and in the future I would have just butted them up and then went over with the next piece and covered everything up. It would have kept everything a lot smoother and a lot flatter. Now, being that this is what it is, it's going to be covered up with no skid eventually. We're able to get it, I think, flat enough. We'll see as we get into the gel coating where we're actually going to polish the edges. We'll see how bad it actually is. Well, this is the aftermath. If you take a look here, you can see where I had to grind the glass all the way down in some spots. If you look right against the, which is really kind of like the secondary transom, you'll see some of the fiberglass is very white, where it didn't really stick well at all. We had to grind all that off. There was a lot of grinding here. You can see the dust. This is not my favorite thing to be doing. Trust me. This is pure fiberglass dust right there. That's the stuff that itches you for days. And what I did find is the more of this you do, the more you can actually tolerate it. And I can see why guys that fiberglass all the time, you say, man, how can they stand itching all the time? Eventually you don't itch anymore. And if you're doing this long enough that you don't itch anymore, you know you've been doing it too long, making too many mistakes. Well, we're fixing another learning experience here. Let me show you what we have. This is that one sheet that we had decided to put down by ourselves. Now, even though
when I was looking at it, I was thinking to myself, you know, I got a couple obstacles. I got some fuel lines. I got a couple of hatches here. Probably shouldn't try to do this in one piece. I did give it a shot, and I don't know how well you can see, but there's quite a few air bubbles in it. Now we've already started grinding out the bubbles. So you can see we got, you know, we went down pretty far in some spots. Other spots we just pretty much popped the bubbles. We did have some loose stuff, see up here, all along that edge. It just we didn't get enough resin in there. I think there might have been something going on with some of this matting. Over here, this whole section right here, we actually, as we were putting it down, we spilled some water. And once water gets into a mat, you're not going to get that epoxy or the resin to set into it. The water just gets sucked up, and there's no place for the resin to get sucked up into. So this is what we're up against right now. Got quite a bit of grinding here. It goes pretty quick. I'm using 40 grit sandpaper, and it's cutting through pretty good. Don't have to go through and fix these holes and stuff that we need. Then, as you can see, the rest of the boat has a floor all the way up. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to coat all this with some resin so it'll soak in. Now,
well, after we got all my mess cleaned up, I went ahead and I decided I'm going to work with smaller pieces. I'm going to try to get this thing done a lot quicker. So we went ahead and coated everything with resin. You can see this sheet right here. You can see the areas that where I had to grind down. And what I did is I went back over all of those spots and filled them back in with glass. So I tried to get them, you know, back up. So everything was pretty smooth again back here. There actually ended up being 2 sheets of the 1708 on the whole deck, really. So we were able to get everything covered up pretty well. Yeah, again, this coating that I'm putting on here is it's going to be a laminate coating, so there's no wax in it or anything. And yeah, the bugs are going to love it, and they sure did love it. But we're able to go ahead. But we were able to go ahead and get this coated. We coated it enough so that the resin had all soaked into the plywood, so I didn't have to worry about when I go ahead and I'm starting to lay this fiberglass that the resin is going to be soaking into the plywood again. I want that resin to be sitting on top of that plywood and soaking into the fiberglass mat. So that's our goal there. Well, this video's getting pretty long here, so we're going to go ahead and leave it at this. The next video we do have, yeah, we got some more interesting stuff happening, so you you want to tune into that one as my misery continues. But thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you see that next video. I wish I could miss it, but you won't want to miss it. We'll see you then. Thanks for watching.